Hey guys, so welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about retouching fitness portraits using Evoto AI. Whether you're shooting athletes in studio or on location, this is a perfect retouching tool to take your fitness portraits to the next level. This video will walk through my step-by-step workflow of retouching this fitness portrait, so let's just dive in. Fitness portraits are a special beast, especially when you're dealing with hard lighting, sweat, textured skin, shadows, and muscle definition. And if you over-edit it, it can kill the intensity. So my goal is to clean up where needed, but keep the authentic, strong look intact. That's where Evoto really shines. So here are 3 fitness images of a professional boxer. As we can see, the images already look pretty good. We did some very, very clean, simple lighting. All right, so now the only thing is we want to go into the detail and we want to be able just to fine tune without losing too much detail, without losing too much texture, and you still want to keep the intensity of the photo. Whenever I'm editing men, I always like the photos to look still as realistic as possible. You never want the male athlete to feel like they're too polished or that they're too soft or that their skin looks retouched. So you always want to do things to make sure that the athlete still is going to feel comfortable, is still going to feel strong, still is going to feel confident, and not feel overly retouched. So typically, before I ever go into skin retouching, I always just make some color adjustments if needed. So with this image, I'm just going to go zoom in a little bit closer so we're able to actually see. I usually like to raise up my sharpness just a little bit within my detail. So I'm going to go up to about 10. I don't like it being too drastically sharp, but I do like just being able to see that texture on the skin and the texture on the face. Now the highlights, I'm going to bring down my highlights just a tad bit. Perfect. Just so we can see a little bit more detail right here within the highlights. All right. Whenever you're retouching, I always tell people don't be afraid to zoom in. It may feel like you're invading a little bit. Luckily, the client's not there to watch you while you're retouching, but you always want to make sure that you're zooming in, that you're able to see the actual details of what you're editing. For my color grading, I always like my colors to look as realistic as possible. So I don't really do too much within the color grading. I just want to make his skin look a little bit more yellow. There we go. That's perfect. All right, so now we can see there we have it. Nice and simple. All we did was just adjust our sharpness, our colors, and our highlights a bit. Perfect. So now we're going to go into our actual skin retouching. I'm going to start with the blemish removal. I love that we're able to use a slider whenever you're working with Evoto. I just love being able just to go up and down and see what's working and what's not working. Obviously, if I do it all the way up, we can see what that difference looks like. Don't be afraid to turn on and off your before and after. So this looks pretty good. The thing I love is that it doesn't look overly retouched. It doesn't look overly sharp, but I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. He doesn't have any freckles, but I see that it's picking up some of his little facial moles as the freckles. So we're going to keep that in there. The acne, you can see just with the acne, I'm going to raise it up. That looks pretty good. And perfect. I'm going to reduce the face shine. Most time, whenever you're photographing people, if they're not wearing makeup or powder to dim their shine, you're always going to get face shine. So I love being able to use this reduced face shine in Evoto. Again, I want this to look as realistic as possible and not overly retouched. So I'm not going to bring it super high, but just enough to where it's noticeable. And as you can see, every time I'm making an edit, I'm always clicking the before and after. I always want to just keep track of what I'm doing and how it's affecting my image. Now for eye bags, I'm just going to bring this up a little bit and keep going. There we go. And even with the dark circles, you know, we naturally have bags under our eyes. So don't be afraid to retouch and smoothen that out a bit. Perfect. I'm going to go over to the forehead wrinkles. He doesn't really have any forehead wrinkles, so I'm just going to bring this up just a little bit. Bring up the eye wrinkles a bit as well. All right, so now we're going to go over to the skin. So with the facial skin, we're going to sculpt a little bit. I love the dodge and burn, but I really love using the dodge and burn on the skin. So what we're going to do is we're going to go more into his abs area, and we're going to raise up our frequency separation. And as you can see, the higher that I'm raising it, we're seeing a little bit more texture within the stomach, even with that high frequency. If I lower that high frequency versus if I raise it all the way up, you can see that difference with the texture, and that's what we want. We want that more of that definition, especially when it comes to the abs. Whenever it comes to muscles, you want a little bit more definition. I'm gonna do the same thing with the low frequency. Perfect, I'm gonna keep it lower. And all we're doing is just adding a little bit more enhancement. As you can see, it still looks realistic. It doesn't look like we're doing so much. All we're really doing is raising up our highlights and dropping down our shadows just to make the muscles look a little bit more defined, and adding some more texture into that as well. All right. Now we can even add in some glossiness, and that's just gonna help with the overall shine with the highlights of the abs. As you can see, when you're looking at the six pack, the highlights are what's creating that definition. So I'm just gonna raise up that glossiness a bit. All right. And even when you're raising up the clarity, as you can see, it's helping the muscles look more defined, but even the tattoos as well. Now, if we want, we can even go into our textured smoothing, and we can raise that up a bit. And the thing I like about the texture smoothing is it kind of keeps like the grain within the photo, so it keeps this texture of the skin. It doesn't make it look too smooth to where there's no texture. Now, if we want to smooth out the face a little bit more, I'll just go a little bit more into my dodge and burn. Now we can see that looks good right there. This actually looks pretty good in how I like it. Again, I don't really like to do too much whenever I'm working with male athletes because I still want them to look realistic. I don't want it to look overly retouched. I still want to be able to have the texture of the skin, texture of the muscles, a little bit more definition within the highlights and the shadows. But if I zoom out and just do a before and after, there we have it. Nice and clean, doesn't look overly retouched, doesn't look overly manicured. And now I can easily just go and sync these settings between the rest of the images. All right, so here's another image, and that looks great. Let's do a close-up on the face. And look how realistic it looks, and even on the abs just looks a little bit more defined. And that's all you really want. You just want things to look a little bit more defined. If I want, I can even go back and drop my shadows a bit, and there we go. And then here's the last image. Let's start with the abs. So like with this, I could even add a little bit more, add a little bit more glossiness. Just right for those abs, you see it? And there we have it, using Evoto AI to edit a fitness photo. And if you want to try Evoto for yourself, check out the link in the description for a free trial and also for a discount. See you in the next one.